Geoff, and I coach at a local school here in the Dallas area, in Frisco. And today we're going to be talking about the 1 and R. I assume most of you are 1Ns. If you're a 1N, raise your hand. You're in the right place. If you're not a 1N, it's always a good skill to learn. How many of you have debated before? Okay. So, for those of you who are 1Ns, how many of you are tired of the 2NC always going for what they go for and never going for your arguments? Right. We're going to talk about how to change that. We're going to talk about how to change that. The title of the lecture is 1 and R, Offense, 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 or How to Make the 2 and R Go for Your Arguments. And we're going to talk about various facets of the responsibilities of the 1 and R, argument selection, what type of arguments that are usually gone for in the 1 and R. And then we're going to also talk about, kind of stray away from the title of the lecture, and talk about some other responsibilities that the 1 and R has. Fun facts about the 1 and R. What's the best thing about the 1 and R? It's got the most prep time, right? Theoretically, you have 13 minutes prep time for the 1 and R for 5 minutes each. Is there anything in debate that compares to that? Besides the 1NC. Besides the 1NC. Right. In that amount of time, you have so much time to think about your arguments, to put together all of your best arguments. And the 1 and R is often underutilized, but in my opinion, it's the most powerful speech that can be the most devastating to the 1 and R that the negative has. Usually 1Ns are the faster debaters. That's not always necessarily the case, but being extremely quick helps in the 1 and R because your goal is to not only win your argument, but pressure the 1 and R, or pressure the 1 and R. What's another cool thing about the 1 and R that doesn't happen in any other speech, any other constructive speech? What does not occur? Cross-examination, which means you can take complex arguments in the 1 and R that the affirmative doesn't get a chance to ask questions about. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in argument selection. Some common arguments that the 1 and R should go for. The first being theory. Theory debates are usually complex, and when I'm talking about theory debates, I'm talking about maybe counterpoint theory, conditionality, maybe plain inclusive counterpoint, or any other type of theory debate that might occur. Even if the 2NC is going for the counterpoint, the 2NC should leave that theory to you, because that way you get more time to think about it, so you're not just reading blocks, you can actually answer their arguments, and they don't get the cross-examination to clarify exactly what your arguments mean, which means the 1AR has to sit there and spend prep time and cipher through all of the arguments that you get to make. So theory is an argument that 1Rs should be going for. And talk to your 2NCs about it. Say, hey, I'll take theory. Before we get into more argument selection, I want to talk about other responsibilities outside of the 1R that you should do. First and foremost is, if the 2NC needs help prepping their speech to save prep time, you should be doing that. Because you have this great pool of prep time, potentially at a maximum 13 minutes. If the 2NC needs you to pull cards for them, do that. Because that saves prep time for the 2 and R. Hey, can you pull me, can you get me link cards to the politics dissent? Go through that while they can prep something else. Or, hey, can you prep this impact turn debate for me? While I'm prepping, the link debate and the uniqueness debate, can you pull me the impact extensions? Can you write out a couple of arguments on how we beat this card that they have that's really good. The 1NR or 2NC doesn't necessarily have the time to sit and read that piece of evidence and decide because the clock's ticking the whole time. You can do that for them. You can read that card and come up with 2 or 3 answers that answers that card back and write it out on a sheet of paper, and then when it's time for the 2NC to get to that argument, slip them the sheet of paper. Right? First and foremost, you want to be able to help your 2NC. Now, a lot of 2NCs may not want your help, but always be there for the 2NC because you want as much prep time for the 2NR as possible. And that's one of the responsibilities of the 1NR. Also, when you're giving your 1NR, always think about there's a chance that the 2NC might not get through every argument they wanted to get through. For example, if there are 15 arguments on the politics dissent and the 2NC only gets to 13, how many of you have experienced this? The 2NC turns to you and says, hey, I need you to answer these last 2 arguments for me. Right? And here you are, spent all this time prepping your 5-minute speech, and you're like, what do I do now? Always be aware that that is a possibility. And so that you might have to adjust in the 1NR, which is okay because you have so much prep time. Right? So, arguments we want to go for in the 1NR. We talked about theory and how important theory is because they don't get across X. The other is something extremely offensive. And by offensive, I mean can win you the debate. For example, a counterplan and its net benefit. Or a dissat and the case debate. A lot of case debates are done in the 1N. Perhaps if you don't have a counterplan that you're going for, and so you're trying to get your dissat to outweigh the case, because that way you get to read the 1AC evidence, figure out, look at the 2AC cards, read the 2AC cards, and figure out the best answers, because the 1NR has the most time to do that instead of the 2NC. Those are the types of arguments you want to go through. When I was the 1NR, and I did the 1NR for most of my debating career, we always gave ourselves, me and my partner, at least two avenues to win. My partner would take maybe one dissat in the K, and I would take a counterplan and the net benefit. And chances are, most 1ERs think that the 2NCs are arrogant, and most 2NCs are arrogant, right, which is why they won't go for your arguments. And so the 1ER is going to overcover the 2NC argument and put more and spend more time there because they anticipate that's where the 2NC is going in the 2NR. If you stand up in the 1NR and you solidly defend your counterplan and read a bunch of cards on politics and win that argument outright, it forces the 2NC to say, hey, this is the easiest path to victory. That's why the 1NR is the most overlooked speech, but also the most deadliest for the negative. I can't tell you how many rounds we've won because of over-coverage of the 2NC and under-coverage of the 1NR by the 1AR. Because by their very nature, 1As are also usually 2Ns, and so they anticipate that the 2NC is going to go for whatever their arguments, the arguments the 2NCs go for. So, dissat and counterplan, dissat and case, theory, a brilliant 1.5-minute topicality argument where you win it straight out can be devastating because the 1ER is going to blow a tee off thinking that they're topical. Right? That situation's occurred in my debate career where I spent 45 seconds on a tee violation because they didn't make that many answers, and we went for it. It was a 3-0. Right? So there are lots of ways and lots of arguments you can do and you can take to win. The goal is to try to put as much pressure on the 1AR as possible. If you do that, even if the 2NC decides they're going to go for their argument, you have sucked up so much 1AR time because your 1AR was so offensive that chances are the 1ER is not going to be able to cover everything. And that's your goal. And you have the opportunity to give the best sounding speech in the debate. Now, why would that be the case?
Have like a lot of time to articulate a few arguments.
Exactly. You can write out your 1R. You can write out the 1Rs in longhand, right? And so it actually, and just read it straight. So it sounds better. It's more articulate. It's more persuasive. You know, you can write out entire arguments, you know. And that's another thing that you could do for the 2NC. If the 2NC asks you, hey, I need answers for this, you know, you can write out in longhand, you know. So when the 2NC reads it, it sounds good. Because it always sounds better when you're reading it as opposed to when it's coming off the top of your head, right? You can use important adjectives, big words, persuasive words, words with the right inflection that become really persuasive to a judge in the back of the room. Also, 1R. One of the best things that you must do is scrutinize your opponent's evidence. Because you have so much time, you have the luxury that the 2NC doesn't, and that is to read every card that the affirmative has read on the arguments that you're going for. You can read them all, and you can find out which are their strongest arguments, which are their weakest, and then you can coordinate, I need to spend more time here, I don't need to spend as much time here because this piece of evidence is bad, and if the judge wants to call for that piece of evidence at the end of the debate, you're pretty confident that your evidence is better. You get to do that. You have that luxury. The 2NC, if they try to do that, there goes the prep time, shrinking. The 2NC is going to selectively choose which of their cards to read. You can read all of them because you have so much time. Do you really need 13 minutes to prep a speech? Right? The 2NC doesn't. And it's basically what you're given is a mini 2NC. So maximize your time. Maximize your time. The biggest don't of the 1R. Do not, under any circumstances, use prep time for the 1R. I see it happen all the time. There is absolutely no reason for you to use prep time when you have the potential of 13 minutes. And that 13 minutes is if your partner doesn't ask you to do something. Let's say your partner asks you to do something, that takes up 3 minutes. You still have 10 minutes to prep one speech. You know? That's enough to write everything out in longhand. Question?
So you're saying, like, between the